and welcome to the Land Pioneers podcast, where we get to speak with some of the leading minds shaping the future of land development and city shaping. So each episode, we uncover the insights, experience, and lessons behind the people driving real change in our industry. And today I'm joined by Col Dutton, the General Manager of Stockland in Western Australia. So Col is by far one of the most impressive guests we've had on our show, and with over 35 years of experience across land development, local government, and civil engineering, he's one of the most respected voices in the Australian property sector. He's, as I mentioned before, currently the General Manager of Stockland in WA, and across Australia, Stockland is one of the most well-known as a land development pioneer and also being one of the most innovative development companies. So I'm super excited to hear Col's insights. So just briefly, during his 25-year tenure at Stockland, Col has led the Gold Coast and WA portfolios, and his team are currently delivering a pipeline of more than 20,000 lots across current, launch and pipeline projects in Perth's 4 key growth corridors. On the West Coast, Col has been a driving force behind some of the state's most successful master plan communities, from the Coastal Precinct and Amberton Beach to the innovative all-electric Nara community in Beaconsfield. So I'm really excited to hear from Col and share his insights with our audience. But before we get started, just briefly, a little bit about Eagle Vision. We are the sponsors of the Land Pioneers podcast, and Eagle Vision has been involved in 3D visualization for nearly 18 years. We've delivered close to 745 projects, including large-scale land estates, major precincts, and greenfield communities across Australia. Large-scale building and development teams often work with us because our visuals are there to support big-picture master plan decisions, interactive master plans, precinct frameworks, and effective marketing collateral to communicate the functional elements of proposed land communities, not just to create pretty presentations. And with teams across Australia and Europe, work continues around the clock to keep large, complex projects moving. We're very open with how we work, giving builders and developers clear visibility over progress and detail without any surprises. The clarity and reliability are why Eagle Vision is trusted on complex, large-scale subdivision projects. And now back to our guest, Col Dutton. So, Col, let's start right at the very beginning. Early on in your career, you started at the Gold Coast City Council. What was it like to shift from government to a major private developer like Stockland?
Yeah, thanks, Dan, and great to be aboard the podcast. So I actually started in Brisbane in engineering, like post-uni and a few other things, but started in Brisbane in a technician role as a civil engineering technician, inspecting roadworks, bridge works, drainage, things like that, and kind of morphed over time towards development assessment, and ended up leaving Brisbane, the Tweed Shire, and then the Gold Coast, and moved into a development assessment role at the Gold Coast City Council. It was a pretty hectic time. The Gold Coast and the corridor to Brisbane, the train line had just been completed in around that same time, and it was the highest. I think it was the highest growth rate in Australia at the time, and filling up quickly. And my role was to kind of coordinate the land and environmental approvals through the late 90s and early 2000s. So it got me into development, gave me a taste interacting with all the different developers and issues that go along with a growing city. And I had a whole lot of fun and got a whole lot of experience through that period.
Nice one. And the opportunity came up to move across to Stockland?
Yeah, Stockland, and I think at the time they were probably one of the top developers on the Gold Coast. They had a large project they bought in the 90s, Pacific Pines, which I started as project director. They had no staff on the Gold Coast, so basically based out of Brisbane for the Queensland business. And I was the first employee on the Gold Coast, and I built a team up of around 30. End up selling about 5 projects across Gold Coast over the subsequent 10 years or so.
Fair enough. And what made you move over to WA after that?
The opportunity to be a general manager for Stockland in a state. It was great. I think the Gold Coast business had the Stockland part of the Gold Coast business. So as projects were running out, I was looking to stay in Queensland, but certainly when the role came up, it kind of big decision with family and 3 young kids under 5 at the time, and we bit the bullet and did it.
You must like the coastal lifestyle. Gold Coast, WA, beautiful beaches.
No, Perth is a beautiful capital city on the beach. The beaches are gorgeous, as is the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast is probably a bit more beach culture versus Perth, because you definitely go through the 4 seasons here. Winter's pretty full on. Water's a lot colder than the Gold Coast, but certainly beautiful city, beautiful open space, great water bodies, great beach. It's a great place to bring up a family and great place to work.
Yeah. How did you find development? Were there any similarities between Gold Coast and WA as you moved over?
The front end approval stuff was fairly similar. I think the builders, compared to the south at the time, Southeast Queensland builders weren't as large in volume, if you like, but certainly what struck me first was quality built form in the housing space, and large builders with large volumes delivering the projects over here, while helping the mum and dad buy homes and buy into the communities that the likes of Stockland and Sadlerley and Pete and the likes were developing. So right. First impression was really good in regard to quality and the way that the city was laid out.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you're talking a little bit about Western Australia and its development. What's it like in Perth in terms of the growth zones? How do they operate?
Yeah, so in a greenfield context, you've got the 4 diagonals of the compass, northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. And then you've got an inner area where more the apartments, medium density, so a central area, which spreads either side of the city. There's a particular area heading down along the beach, is down to Cottesloe and the like, down to Fremantle. That is probably the most concentration of built form. But the greenfield corridors on the northwest and southwest, up against the water and beaches, is probably 60%, 50 to 60% of the greenfield market. And Stockland operates in all 4 corridors, if you like, and concentrates on future purchases in all 4 corridors, in those 4 corridors. Plus, we do some medium density. We're doing a couple of medium density at the moment, standalone medium density rather than greenfield. So, it keeps us busy on the inner and the outer parts of Perth.
Yeah. How do you find in terms of premium sort of land? Is it mostly around that northwest, southwest corridors where the water is, or are there some other landscaped features that are interesting?
Yeah, no, the inner corridors and the northeast, for example, is up against the Swan Valley, which is a winery area close to Perth, and the southeast extends down to Armdale and further. So there's definitely different choices. Probably the northwest corridor is the busiest at this point in time. It goes up to Yanchit, which is about 55 kilometres up the corridor. Perth's very lucky in that, and recent initiatives by the state government, there's train lines now, Metronet is the name for it. There's train lines now in the 4 corridors I spoke of. So the infrastructure's finally got to the extents of the corridors, and I think that really helps drive a lot of the growth in those 4 corridors.
Yeah, great. And the local government, they're creating townships, they're creating local infrastructure as well as the train lines?
Yeah. There's actually 31 local authorities in Perth, which is, having grown up in Brisbane where there was one, it was a bit of a shock when I landed. But a lot of we obviously deal with the local authorities as part of the development process. A lot of the front end and planning approvals are through the state government, which is really an advantage, I suppose, at that level versus as you operationalise the approvals, a lot of it is at the local authority level.
Yeah, right. And we talked a little bit earlier about the housing crisis and how these different housing targets were set up. So you mentioned that WA is very close to the actual original target of the 25,000 homes. How did they manage this?
Yeah, they're certainly having a go over here. With the state government is leading the charge on that. I think both obviously at government spend in regard to the infrastructure I spoke about before, but also the front end approvals, getting a coordinated approach to the planning approvals and the infrastructure authorities, the state infrastructure authorities. They've also introduced, and there's a number of initiatives through the various announcements, like a lot of the state governments. But I think some of the structure the government has set up here in regard to identifying those corridors, identifying and getting money funding behind the infrastructure, and still a way to go with some of the environmental approvals, but in regard to having both federal and state, but they're certainly working towards that at the moment.
Yeah, cool. And you touched on environmental. I wanted to actually get to Stockland and the strategies there. So one of the big things is ESG, right? The environmental, social and governance sort of strategy stuff.
Yeah.
How is Stockland managing those kind of frameworks within their projects?
Yeah, so Stockland kicked off an ESG strategy, I think it was August 23. I was actually involved in, particularly from a master plan communities phase, I suppose turning strategy into execution at the project level. And it's really, we've got four pillars, decarbonisation, circularity, social impact and resilience. So what we do as part of our annual business planning is identifying at the project level what a minimum standard is for each project. And it might be like social impact. We do a lot of focus on livability and how we measure livability at the project level. We get surveys every year, and we set our own benchmarks in regard to what we want to achieve in the projects. Resilience, for example, is more focused on vegetation and heat-on effect, and what can we do at a local project level besides the overarching strategy and having targets. What do we do at a project level to bring that to life so that the project teams actually understand it, and we make sure across a national picture we're all delivering to a certain standard in par with our strategy.
Yeah, interesting. And what about materials? Is there anything around the actual materials that you're using that then goes along with that framework?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of work in regard to the various materials. Perth, unlike, and I'm talking housing, I suppose, Perth is catching up, if you like, is very brick orientated over the years. I think we did the UDAA, which I've been involved in at the state and federal level, did a survey 5-6 years ago where I think 88% of houses were constructed from double brick, and it's kind of the opposite in the eastern states. So Stockland is very much encouraging, and the industries and the builders are turning to more lightweight material, modern methods of construction, for example. So Perth's coming a long way over the last 5-6 years, and still we have the volume brick builders, if you like, and certainly for us, both in the stuff we contract, the built form we contract directly, we ensure that we investigate and totally innovate in regard to the latest materials. It's definitely a changing space, and we have, I suppose, centralised functional experts that keep up with it and help guide the projects along the way.
Yeah, and you can bring across some of the trends from the eastern states over to the west.
Yeah, definitely, and there's a lot of innovation goes on here as well. You mentioned in the introduction Nara down at Beaconsfield, a project. That's I think our first project. It's just over 200 built form terrace housing. 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom properties. But basically that will have full solar and battery across the whole project. Wow. So there's things like that we encourage project teams to experiment with, and then again the minimum standard will be increased each year, and we'll look to implement it across other areas as well. Yeah,
brilliant. How about artificial intelligence and some of that sort of technology? Are you doing much around customer acquisition or anything like that with it?
Certainly in Stockland, Salesforce is obviously a large customer CRM platform. We've been involved, I think it would be around 8 years now. I think I'm not sure whether we still are, but at one point we're the largest Salesforce user in Australia. And I suppose that comes with the volume of stuff that the homes and the projects that we do. But certainly there's a lot of work being put in and being investigated. Is definitely flavour of the month, if you like. And that's probably the initial area where it's most used in the acquisition of customers and
maybe some communication and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So that's definitely in our space, and there'll be other opportunities in the future. But I think the CRM and the focus on that for that number of years, it automatically, and particularly with large products like Salesforce, it becomes with that product, and we try and make sure we use the capacity of the product as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And you mentioned UDAA a little bit earlier. So you've been a president in WA as well as a national president. Was there any particular advocacy work that you were most proud of that you completed?
Oh, it's never-ending joy. I was actually president on the Gold Coast as well for a few years in the branch there, and I think it's really important that industry bodies like the UDA, and probably UDA is probably the most focused on planning and housing, and it's a really important role to get involved in. What I'm most proud of, I think the latest housing crisis, I think the supply has been found out, if you like, and I think the UDA, me and others have been involved in shining a spotlight on that. It's something that we've done probably 5 to 6 years ago, and I think the post-COVID period really shone a light on the need for both greenfield and apartments in built form. I think with the feasibility of apartments in built form, post-COVID, with the cost shock, if you like, the greenfield's been doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and I think since then the UDA has been really focusing on infrastructure approvals, both planning and environmental, but also infrastructure coordination and funding. So I think that's really come as an issue. Perth, a good example. The established market over here is as tight as it's ever been in the last probably 15 months. And so if people can't buy in the established market, they're looking to new. There's still difficulty in getting some of the high rise out of the ground because of costs. And so the greenfields doing the heavy lifting. So having a real focus on the whole supply picture I think has been some of the best work by the UDAA.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. And so let's switch gears a little bit. You've now been with Stockland for 25 years. We talked a little bit earlier on around young people and how entering sort of the property industry, everybody thinks, oh yeah, that's just becoming a real estate agent, right? Whereas there's far more to it. So what's the pathway like for perhaps graduates to go into Stockland?
Yeah, so Stockland has a graduate program, and it's been around since I joined Stockland actually. And there's a number of friends, colleagues that are clocking up over 20 years that came through the graduate program. So I think it's important for Stockland, the likes of Stockland, to make sure that they provide those pathways. Locally, I'm involved in the Property Education Foundation as well, and you find out through, and that does scholarships out of uni and whatever, and internships during the holidays and stuff. But you definitely find a lack of awareness of the variety and of roles in property. Like you said, a lot of them think it's real estate agents. That's obviously an important part of the established market. But certainly the number of, just looking at our business in residential here in WA, the accountants, the marketing, the sales, the project managers, development managers, customer relations, conveyancing, there's a whole lot of opportunity in regard to our industry. And it's a great industry to be part of. You're actually, creating, communities of the future, or creating within communities. And people, I don't see, I think a lot of the young kids don't get to see that holistic picture.
Yeah. And lastly, so on the personal level, I imagine your job is fairly hectic and there's quite a high level of stress. Is there a personal outlet that you go to?
Yeah, I've definitely found over time, and I played sport and everything when I was younger, out of Queensland, so more league and union orientated, but certainly in a bit of surf boat rowing. But over time, I've worked out that I stay more balanced if I'm fit. So I try and do a bit of swimming as my base fitness, and a bit of gym, a bit of walking, whatever. So yeah, I think staying fit, keeping the body fit for me works in regard to staying balanced, and yeah, that's where I keep myself honest.
Fair enough. There's obviously one of the most iconic swims, the Rottnest Island swim.
Oh yes, yeah. It's
Do you want to talk about that? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the Rottnest, it's a really great community day here in Perth, where Rottnest Island's about 20k off the beach, and off Cottesloe, and yeah, I've done it a couple of times solo and teams and duos and that as well. It seems, and I don't think I was swimming too much before I came to Perth, and I, went the first one came up, I said, "Geez, what's that about? Like swimming to an island?" But it seems to be one of those things over here. Obviously it's a beach community, but certainly in a swimming community. So yeah, a mate and I did it together, as in separate soloists, and it's something that you always you get involved in teams and the like in February each year. So I haven't done one lately. The last one it was 3 or 4 years ago, but certainly I keep the swimming up to keep myself sane.
Yeah, amazing. What's it like swimming 20 kilometres by yourself? It's a long way.
Yeah, you do. It's more by the time you get to the day, it's more the time commitment in regard to getting your body to the point where you're confident enough to get there. Certainly, on the day, you've got a ski paddler beside you and a boat that kind of guides you in the right direction. But yeah, I think it's by the time you get to the day, it's more just delivering on all the hard work you've done leading up to it. It's very the weather conditions
Demanding, right?
it depends on the conditions. Like, it's not a straight pool swim. It's the wind over here, a sea breeze kicks in normally late morning, and if you're not as fast as the pros up the front, you cop the bit of you normally at that time of year you get a southwesterly kick in, and it tests you.
So you're swimming against the tide, right?
Yeah, a wind and swell. The tide kind of swaps around a bit, but it's mainly the wind and swell. So yeah, they've had some this year was actually cancelled because of the weather front came through. Yeah. So no, it's I think those things I find really amazing. Like the amount of work that goes in to guys that do it year in and year out is amazing. There's people have done 10 and 20 of them. It's quite amazing. But it's a great community day at the end over on Rottnest. You kind of land beside the pub and everyone celebrates, and it's really worth, regardless of whether you're swimming or not. It's a great day to get involved in.
Yeah, incredible. Very good. All right, look, thank you so much. Appreciate your time and sharing your story and insight. So to everyone listening, this is the Land Pioneers podcast, bringing you real conversations with people shaping the future of land development. And if you got value from today's episode, please rate and share and hit subscribe to see the next one. And we'll see you again. Thank you so much.